Hello and welcome to the Football Breakdown. This is the Fantasy EFL preview show. It's Game Week 31 and I'm Matthew South.
And I'm Ian Cooper.
Yes, hello and welcome everybody. Game Week 31, we're in the almost in the final stretch now of the season. Ian, how are you doing?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Just a little sidetrack, actually, just a little story. This morning, I went and got my hair cut and had the realization that my barber's trying to save my hairline. So it's been a pretty rough morning. So luckily, I've been able to come back, research for the pod, and taken my mind off of that. So feeling very mixed today.
Yeah, that is the depressing nature of the late 20s nowadays.
So you could say if I was a footballer right now, my agent would be saying to me, "Look, the summer's coming up. It's probably your last chance of a big contract. You need to perform in these last couple of months." That's where I'm at in life at the minute.
Yeah, no, pretty much, yeah. No stories for myself today. It's just work and then podcast. So, research was pretty good for this week. I think it's not an easy week, but I think there's a lot of good choices this week, which is good for myself after the absolute shocker I had last week, where I only got 67 points in a double game week, which is humiliating. A third of my points came from Connor Hall, and I have nothing else to add. So, Ian, how did your game week go?
Well, I'm the complete opposite. So in the league, obviously, if you want to join the league at this stage, you can look in the description where you get the invitation code. But I came top with 120 points, and I'm actually really happy with that. Bearing in mind, yet again, my striker Sam Smith didn't score and got me 5 points over double game week. Josh Stokes also didn't score, so he got me 4 points. And sadly, Liam Fraser, as my 0.1 select pick, only played the first game and he got 2 points. So you can see that everyone around them really carried here. Matt Macy, 2 clean sheets, 14 points. Tyler Binden, 2 goal in the first game and a last minute goal as well. So both boosted him up to 10 points, and then a clean sheet in the second one gets me 20 points there. I captured Max Cleworth. Pretty risky with that Bolton game first up, but 2 clean sheets there, so got me 30 points. And Sam Gale, as ever, got 5 interceptions in the first game, only the one in the second, but 15 points there. And interestingly, my 2 teams, sadly, I didn't win the bet because Wrexham drew 0-0 in the first game, but they didn't concede a single goal over the double game week between them. So Colchester got me 16 points and Wrexham got me 14.
Yeah, no, that's very good. I suppose I should add a little bit of analysis into my team. But my game
it's
week
fine. If you want to brush over, you can.
Yeah, I think my game week can be summed up by this. 12:30 kickoff, my first players of the game week. I captained Anthony Sarcevic and he got injured after 25 minutes. The end. Yeah, so I got 2 points of him. Port Vale could not get the job done against Tranmere or Harrogate, but Hall did benefit from that. AFC Wimbledon lost both games, and that was surprising. So that cost me. With Johnson got 7 points. Walker got a clean sheet at least for Bradford, so 9 points for him. Same issue with Fraser for myself. Niall Ennis as well, 2 shots on target is all he did, as well as played 2 sets of 90 minutes, no goals for him. My sub-0.1 pick, Webster, got 11 points, decent, it's fine, but that being my second highest haul of the week is not good. So on to this week. It's a double championship game week, and there are rearranged League 1 and League 2 game weeks, so we're going back to the normal format and we're going through everything. So I'm hoping for some better luck myself, and I'm kicking us off with the championship goalkeeper. And I've written some notes for potential others, but listen, it's James Trafford. If you're not picking James Trafford, I don't really know what's wrong with you. He's in 17% of teams. Weirdly, he's the second highest picked keeper. Ilian Medlier is highest, but I wonder if that is players not playing anymore as well. He's the highest highest average scoring goalkeeper as well out of active goalkeepers. I think the only one higher than him is Burnley's backup in Hladecki. So, most clean sheets in the league with 24, most clean sheets in the EFL. It's James Trafford. I did want to throw out a second option because we've spoken about Trafford a lot because he's so good. Egil Selvik for Watford has now started 5 games in a row for them, and he's kept 3 clean sheets in a row. They've got Mill and Swansea both at home. Swansea have blanked in 3 of their last 6 away games. Both sides average less than a goal a game away from home. So maybe a sneaky outside pick. He is 0% selected. I thought I'd bring that up just to add something else apart from just regurgitating what we keep talking about Trafford. But Egil Selvik for Watford is an outside chance, I think.
Lovely. And going into defenders, I've got two obvious options I just want to clear up with. Obviously, Pascal Struijk is the highest scoring defender, scoring 5 goals. They've come through 3 tough games, not keeping a clean sheet in any of them, but has only conceded 1 goal in all of them. Obviously, CJ Egan-Riley, second highest average scoring defender behind Jacob Farrell, but Farrell's only played 1 appearance this season. Lovely to see that when we started the pod, he was my 0.1 selected pick for about 3 weeks in a row, and he's now climbed to 0.9, but that still feels extremely low. But the player I am going to put forward is Nikola Katic of Plymouth Argyle. He's been ever since he's been in the side, he's been straight into the back line. And the one thing that I find staggering is Katic's average rating is 7.2, and he hasn't claimed a single bonus point for a clean sheet so far. He's actually been docked 4 points for conceding 2 or more goals, which makes it even more impressive. But it's the clearances which I feel it will make Katic a really popular pick for this game week. Both Sheffield Wednesday and Portsmouth are consistent in front of goal, so I'm not going to sit here and claim that I expect a clean sheet to be coming from this game. But both teams will put Argyle on the back foot, and that is where Katic really thrives in the middle of the back three, just winning so many headers, getting the clearances up. So it's just a consistent point scorer, maybe not the highest, but I don't think he's going to let us down.
Yeah, it's that clean sheet. It's the clearance numbers, definitely. I think I raised him as was he my sub 0.1 pick? Or was he just a defender pick the other week?
I think he was a sub 0.1 pick.
Sub 0.1, yeah. So, the fact he's now in the defensive pick probably shows that those points returns are real, they are consistent. So, yeah, no, I do like that pick. Into the midfield now, and I had a few options to look at. You've got Dan James, arguably the best player in the league right now. Josh Murphy's just had a really good month. He's Player of the Month nominee. Jack Rodoni and Coventry are flying up the table, but I do think that it is time for the return of Finn Azaz, who, after a little bit of spell, not really in that Middlesbrough side, Middlesbrough are struggling. Azaz returned to the 11, and he has scored in his last 2 games. He has returned 26 points in those 2 games as well, through 2 goals and assists, a couple of interceptions, lots of key passes as well. He is just really influential in that Middlesbrough side when they're ticking, when he's playing. They got Swansea away and QPR at home. I think they're quite favourable fixtures for a Middlesbrough side who, this is basically, it feels like it's do or die for them now. The playoff picture is still open, but they basically need to come in and win most of their games for the rest of the season to get into that playoff picture. And Azaz just being on form means he's just going to stay in that side. I don't see Carrick dropping him when he's basically been the player to lift them out of the slump they were in. So yeah, Finn Azaz for me this week in midfield.
Yeah, lovely. And I'll move us straight on to the forward pick. And look, another week, another new suggestion for me for a forward. And I'm going for Youssef Salic. He's the man of the moment. He's taken the Championship life really well. And it may be a case that he's playing for Cardiff. It can be quite off-putting. But in his 9 appearances, he scored 5 goals and 1 assist across all competitions. But interestingly, he's only started 4 of those games and is now very much the starting striker. Salic averages 3.1 shots per 90, 0.97 goals per 90, and an XG of 0.8, which is essentially like taking a penalty every 90 minutes. Cardiff have 2 intriguing games this week. First up is Sunderland away. It might be a little controversial, but Sunderland have been fairly suspect at the back recently. There is unrest amongst the fan base about individuals, but especially the keeper Patterson. He's been under a lot of criticism and pressure lately. And the second game is against Luton at home, and genuinely, what a time to be playing Luton at home when you're in real need of points. And I think Salic is going to be vital into achieving that.
Yeah, you look at his last few weeks, finally starting to get into the 11, and it's 3 goals and an assist in his last 4 games, and he's not even starting them. And also, he scored past James Trafford in the week to end James
Mm.
Trafford's clean sheet run, which was an absolute crazy run that I didn't mention at the top. But yeah, no, I do think he looks like a really really good pickup for Cardiff.
And I'm going to go into League One now, and I've got the goalkeeper pick. Sadly, I can't put James Trafford here, so let me find someone that you could debate putting him in with. So initially, I wanted to look at Ryan Alsop in my team, but Chris Davis said on the 5th of March, so yesterday, that Ryan will be missing a few games. So risky to predict if he's going to miss both games or not. So I can only take the manager's word for it. And it's a bit like how when we've selected a Okonkwo for Wrexham and he isn't in the starting lineup, we've looked elsewhere where sometimes maybe we should just looked at the backup keeper in Mark Howard or Callum Burton. So instead of searching for a different keeper, I'm going to go for Birmingham's number 2, Bailey Peacock Farrell. His clean sheet record doesn't look overly promising, but it's Birmingham's back line that I expect to do the heavy lifting in these games. Both of Birmingham matches are being played at home, and they're against Lincoln and Stevenage. I'm fairly confident about Birmingham getting clean sheets when they don't play other top sides in League One.
Interesting, yeah. Talking about keepers who have come under criticism, Peacock
Oh,
Farrell is
yeah.
definitely one of them. But I get the logic. It's more just trying to bank 2 clean sheets in that one, and that kind of leans me into my defensive pick because I was torn between 3 players here. I think there's 3 really good shouts. I'm going to briefly mention 2 of them before my pick. One of them is Cole Piagiani. Really, with they've got Mansfield at home and then it's Birmingham away, and it's really the clearances in mind for that Birmingham game. Piagiani could rack them up, and he is a clearance machine. So I did have an eye over him. Someone who I think is really interesting and is so close to suggesting him is Josh Dakers-Cogley for Bolton. In his 5 games under Steven Schumacher, he's got 38 points. That's a 7.6 point average. He's a really good tackler. That's come as well with like hardly any clean sheets in that run. I think it's maybe 1 or 2. Yeah, a lot of the points coming from other things, and he provides an attacking threat. But the player I'm going to suggest is also coming from Birmingham, and it's Taylor Gardner-Hickman. He counts as a defender, plays all over the place. I was actually looking at their recent lineups this morning. He's found himself, playing central midfield. We've seen him there before for like Bristol City. Weirdly, he also popped up playing left wing one game.
I literally just saw that and I was going to ask, am I seeing this right?
Yeah, Gardner Hickman was playing off the left, and he's also played right back recently too. So it's basically he is the player who is kind of filling in all of the positions. And after not really doing much all season, he has 2 goals and assist in his last 3 games. The home games also come into this, where Birmingham City have kept 4 straight clean sheets at home. So we're going to hopefully pick up some more clean sheet points with the 2 home games, and with Gardner Hickman starting to pick up more bonus points as well. I think he could score really highly if Birmingham win these games to 0.
And for the midfield pick, I've gone fairly obvious choice in Albie Morgan of Blackpool, but I just haven't seen him in enough teams recently, so I'm going to bring him up yet again. He's just an all-action midfielder that I would lean towards because it means that you're not solely relying on points specifically from interceptions or assists, but you really get the full package, which adds up to some real impressive points totals. This is backed up when I look at the per 90 stats in League One. He has 1.38 shots, 1.38 chances created, and 1.64 interceptions. All these metrics contribute to points in EFL Fantasy.
Yeah, Morgan fits that bill of we spoke before. Blackpool playing the 4-4-2. I feel like a midfielder in a 4-4-2 is just brilliant for this because it's just completely all round. And yeah, how he's only on 0.4% is baffling. My striker, after hinting at a Bolton defender, my striker is coming from Bolton. It's John McAtee, 4 goals and 1 assist under Steven Schumacher, 10 goals for the season. He's playing up front with Collins. They kind of changed formations quite a bit. Schumacher's shown he's really adaptable. and had not actually watching Bolton games all the time. It's hard to know exactly who's playing where, but I did have a look at the heat maps and the average positions, and McAtee is usually the furthest forward. He is the one leading the line. We know he's quite versatile. We can play him behind as well, but he is the one who is coming up with the goals right now. Like his 2.35 shots per 90. He's scoring every other game per 90 minutes played at just under 0.5. They've got Burton and Bristol Rovers this week. Burton and Bristol Rovers have both not kept a clean sheet at home since November. So Bolton are going to get chances. They're on really good form, and McAtee is the one who is profiting from that the most.
Cool pick. They're, like you said, they're really good going forward. They're really good at scoring a high amount of goals lately. As long as they're not playing Wrexham, which then they already have, so you've cleared from that one. You're going to be really excited to see how Bolton do over this game week.
Yeah, especially after we said that Wrexham Bolton game could end up being 4-3 and it ended up being 0-0 was just very typical of how things are going right now. And then I'll take us into League Two with the goalkeeper pick, and I'm going a little bit rogue here. I'm going to suggest Nick Townsend from Newport County. Now, we're kind of looking at who's got double game weeks, and there's some really, really good fixtures over the week in League Two, but that also kind of means that you get put off some of the goalkeepers if they're not going to get clean sheets. But Townsend has games against Chesterfield and Accrington, and I'm kind of thinking there's a chance here because he has made 114 saves. I think it's the most on average in the league. I think Alex Bass has made more, but he's also played more games. It's 3.7 a game, so we're looking at decent bonus points here. His last 8 games have seen a 6.7 point average return. And then when you look at the two opponents, Accrington aren't really a high scoring team. Chesterfield have lost 4 in a row at home and only scored 2 goals in that time as well. So there's a chance here for Newport to go there and maybe pick up 2 results that people aren't expecting. But also they're going to give away enough chances that Townsend is going to be forced into saves to pick up those points. And it's not really something I usually go for in a goalkeeper. I just try and get the clean sheet. But I think if you were trying to look outside of the Trafford pick, which I think everyone is just going to use, there's a chance here for saves, and that's why I'm suggesting this instead of clean sheets.
Lovely. And then straight into the defender pick. I'm going for Sam Stubbs of Cheltenham. So one thing out the way, Sam Stubbs wasn't in the team midweek against Bradford, but that is because he is on loan from Bradford, so don't be worried about that one. And the game that they did lose, they lost 3-0, and it was really obvious how much they were missing his influence in the back line. Joel Colwell and Ethan Archer have taken the headlines this season, but for me, Sam Stubbs has been without doubt the best player for them in this season. Stubbs has clocked 264 clearances this season, which puts him joint 6th most clearances in the EFL. And I understand how Cheltenham, as a team, aren't defensively brilliant. They're actually conceded place them exactly mid-table. They sadly do concede, on average, about 1.6 goals a game, which is really high. But the individual quality of Stubbs and his ability to clock high, consistent points totals pushes me to this selection.
Yep, no, solid pick. Again, like you say, just someone who can stand out in the defence is always a good pick. And my midfield pick, speaking of players who stand out, I'm going for Charlie Whitaker from Notts County. He's someone who I've actually mentioned to you before that I've wanted to talk about. He's one of those players who really does pass the eye test. He just looks unbelievable. But it's like, does that translate into fantasy? And I think it kind of has. I mean, there's definitely some misses in there, but there's a few decent returns. He's 2.62 shots per 90, 0.38 goals. He's filling the void left by Dan Crowley, and 1.5 chances created. His FOTMob app is just very green when it comes to going forward. But another thing that was really interesting is that in the game against Barrow that they lost, he made 3 interceptions just out of nowhere. So there is also that chance of he's so almost like all action. He just wants the ball any way possible. So that if that means going and getting it himself, he will go and do that. His shot map's interesting as well because over half those shots come from inside the box. Even though he does have a really good strike on him, we're not talking about someone who's just taking pot shots here. He is actually getting good opportunities. So I think there's a bit of an all-round chance here. The Notts County games are Wimbledon away. It's Wimbledon have kind of had really tight home games in these type of fixtures. So maybe a bit of magic from Whisker will be the thing that settles it. And listen, there's always chance of interceptions against a team that plays quite direct. And then Grimsby is away as well. I think Notts County should have too much for them, even though that will be a tough game for them too. But I think it's hitting that part of the season now where it looks like there's a top 5 in League Two, and you back them to beat the rest of the league if they are going to claim those 3 spots at the top.
Oh, it's interesting you've mentioned that, because I am going for a Grimsby player for my forward pick, and I'm going for Danny Rose. They are in a sneaky run of form, and so is Rose. Rose has 6 goal involvements in the last 7 games and 11 league goals across the season. The fact of this is Rose does take penalties for Grimsby, but don't take that as a bad point. Rose also averages over 1 shot on target per 90, which shows he's able to get consistent chances. And Rose is very much in a similar role to Matty Stevens at Wimbledon. Not really much of a provider or too influential in the build-up, but he's a poacher who takes a high volume of shots in promising areas. And then I do mention that Grimsby play both Walsall and Notts County, which does look off-putting, but I feel that it's a good matchup. Walsall haven't won in their last 3 games, and they've only kept 1 clean sheet in 2025, whilst Notts County have only won once in their last 5 games and haven't kept a clean sheet in any of those games either.
Yeah, fair. I say the top 5 thing after Wimbledon just lost 2 games in a row against teams outside the top 5. But it's one of those things of like, yeah, there's 2 ways I guess to look at it. You can look at form. I just go, I in my head am going for, they like, listen, if Notts County don't get this over the line, they're going to look at games like this where they're not winning. But I do get the fact that you also have to pick a bit of form, and Danny Rose has done it at this level for years, so definitely a solid option.
Yeah, definitely. And probably the striker pick, I don't really need the result to go their way, I just need the goals. So that's kind of what's influenced that as well.
So moving into our sub 0.1% selections, as always, myself and Ian will pick a player who's been picked by 0.1% of people or less, and we have to put them in our team. So Ian, who have you gone for this week?
So I feel like I've gone for a very outside pick. Well, I suppose it is outside pick. He is selected 0.1%. But I see it as a very similar role to Albie Morgan, actually. And I'm going for Ed Francis of Exeter, an all-round midfielder who contributes going forward, but can consistently pick up interception points, and an average scoring rating of 5.7. I feel he's really under the radar. And if I look at his recent totals, okay, he was on the bench against Northampton and against Charlton. And their last game did finish 0-0, but he got 1 interception, so only got 4 points there. But I feel like that was a bit of an anti-football game when I watched the highlights back. So I'm just going to go over the games just before that. So a couple of weeks ago, he scored 10 points against Cambridge, getting 4 interceptions. 9 points against Stevenage in a 4-1 loss, where he got 2 interceptions and an assist, and then also got an assist against Leyton Orient and 4 interceptions there, so got 13 points. So when he does play in a midfield too as well. So I just feel like having 2 home games against Shrewsbury Town and Mansfield Town, it's going to be quite a back and forth game, I hope. So I'm just hoping he wins the ball and drives up and creates chances there. So yeah, I've gone for Ed Francis.
Very, very nice. Yeah. He's someone who always comes up when you're scrolling through players with quite a high points return, and I always wondered why. So well, now I know why. So very good. Yeah, my pick is also coming from League One. I'm suggesting Sil Swinkles for Bristol Rovers. Now he was one of the highest points returners in the last game week. He was just off the back of a 28-point return where he scored twice as a centre-back. And as a centre-back, he has 1.52 shots per 90. Oh, sorry, he scored once, kept a clean sheet in the other. But he does have 2 goals this season in 5 appearances. And in fact, he has only played just over 200 odd minutes for Bristol Rovers, and in that time has made 45 clearances. which works out as 17 clearances per 90. In fact, against Rotherham in their last home game, he made 27 clearances, scored a goal, 2 blocks, 3 tackles. They did concede 3 times, so no clean sheet, but he still got 19 points. Listen, this guy just seems like an absolute monster at the back. Bristol Rovers, I'm very much leaning into Bristol Rovers are not a good side, and their fixtures this week of Huddersfield and Bolton, both at home, very much line up with that Rotherham game where they are going to be under pressure. So why not pick the guy who's just going to be clearing the ball for 90 minutes straight? So still Swingles for me. He does have the attacking threat that I think could come into play as well. But yeah, I just feel like, I just feel like it's one of those where this could go good or it could go bad. This could be like Sam Gale, where it just carries on going and he just keeps picking up points. Or I'm going to be on the pod next week going, he got absolutely no points and he's never going to be picked again by anyone. So this is it. I feel like he's definitely going to make clearances. That's kind of how these games go. It's just how many will he make to rack up enough points for not picking someone else.
Yeah, so it reminds me of the Nikola Katic selection for the defenders in Championship. It's just a player who's clearly very influential in a really bad defense. I was going to bring up the case of like, is it the fact that he's just got the 2 goals, which gets his average rating up really high, is like swayed you? But when you look at those clearance numbers, they are ridiculous.
Exactly, because I did do a bit just to be like, right, what is it like without the goals? And obviously it's not as exciting, but because there's so many sub appearances in there, like he hasn't always started, but he has started the last 2. And they're his only 2 actual starts. And then when you realise that, okay, there's actually a lot of stuff going on then when he does play, and when you look at his stats under the hood, it's definitely pleasing in the clearance numbers. But obviously this is a small sample size, so we're just kind of hoping that keeps up. And then shall we move into our final section, which is our teams to win? I'll kick us off this week. As always, myself and Ian are going to put a £5 bet on our teams to win their first game of the game week. And we have a head-to-head going, which Ian is running away with, but I don't think either of us have actually won in a while now. So yeah, it's not been a great run of form, but I'm picking 2 teams here, just very much with fantasy points in mind, as I just need those points. I'm picking Sheffield United at home to Preston and Bristol City, so Preston in the bet. I just think 2 games here. Sheffield United they have been pretty good recently. The only hiccup is that Leeds result, but Leeds so good in those games that you can kind of get over it. They bounced back with a nice 2-1 win over QPR, and I just feel that they should have too much for Preston. And then I feel they have too much for Bristol City, who, whilst they won the other night, it was their first away win since November, I think. So, like a tough game, but a game that I think Sheffield United can edge. And then the second team I'm going for is Bolton Wanderers, just trying to capitalise on the form they're in. 2 away games against bottom 5 clubs in Burton Albion and Bristol Rovers. So I think, the fact that you get the 2 points for the away win just means that, if they can get 2 wins here, that would be a really, really healthy return. And I think they're good enough to go and do that. The double returns £16.78 on Sheffield United to beat Preston and Bolton to beat Burton.
Yeah, so I've kind of gone the similar mould, as in I just want teams that are near the top of the table to try and get the maximum amount of points. It proved last week when I got 30 points off my 2 teams. I need to run that back again. So I've gone really, really boring. This is the first time I've ever done this. I've gone for Leeds United, and I've also gone for Burnley. So the first game in the bet is Leeds United away to Portsmouth. Okay, being away is a little bit annoying, but Leeds are just going to have far too much for this team. And then they play Millwall at home. They are the best team in the league, so we should just see 2 wins here. And for Burnley, their first game for the bet is Luton at home. Should be perfect. And then the second game is West Brom, who they're playing all right. They're scoring. They're still not that fluid. they still struggle with scoring goals. They do score in the games, but they haven't really had many high totals. So if you're not scoring 4 goals a game going into Burnley away, I don't know if that's going to translate into a lot of goals there as well. So yeah, I've gone for Leeds and Burnley. And interestingly, my £5 returns me £11.35, which I'm really happy with.
Yeah, not a bad return given the teams involved. Yeah, I feel like you say, the West Brom game is probably the one wary thing of that, but Burnley have been so good at home and they don't concede goals that yeah, I just don't see West Brom being the one to come and do it, seeing as so many other teams have gone and failed in the first place. I guess the only thing is, I guess for both sides, is that Leeds West Brom 1-1 draw last week, which then you're thinking maybe West Brom can go and score, and also Leeds weren't able to put them to bed. But listen, I feel like Leeds were allowed an off day given the run they've been on. So yeah, two definitely solid picks there. But yeah, but as always, you can follow us on the socials. We're going to do a rundown of our teams here. But if our teams do change before the weekend, then if you follow us on X at FBBD pod, or if you follow us on Bluesky at Football Breakdown, you can keep up to date with any changes we make, any discussions through the weekend, and also if you've enjoyed the video or the podcast, do like, subscribe, whatever app you're listening to. It does help us out as well. But Ian, do you want to give me a rundown of your team for this week?
Yeah, sure. So I have gone for my favourite formation of 3 defenders, 2 midfielders, and 1 striker. Of course, I've got James Trafford in goal, and if I'm going in James Trafford in goal, I have to have CJ Egan-Riley in defence. So I've gone double Burnley there. Then I've got Nikola Katic and Sam Stubbs as my other 2 defenders. I obviously have the sub 0.1 pick of Ed Francis, and I've selected him alongside Albie Morgan, so just 2 all-round midfielders. I can't big them up and then not play them, so I've gone both of them there. And then I want to suggest a forward that I spoke about on the pod, so it's either Selleck or Danny Rose. And just because I think it's fun because they're playing against Wolves or Notts County, I'm going for Danny Rose.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, it's going to sound a little bit familiar. I've got James Trafford and CJ Egan-Riley in defence. I do have Sil Swinkles, and then I have Connor Hall as well as my other defender. Just one of my favourites and absolute clearance machine. My only good point scorer from last week, so I'm going to keep him in. And, Albie Morgan is in my midfield too, as well as Finn Azaz, and then McAtee is up top. So that brings us to the end of this week's preview show. As always, follow us on the socials to keep up to date with any changes we make. And yeah, enjoy the weekend ahead of football. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Matthew.
And take it easy.